welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Ntwaniengomane. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. On today's video, I want to talk about, actually it's a follow-up. If you've watched my fave vlog, I was on a training that we did for South African candidates who were coming here to do their articles. And in that vlog, I mentioned, or I actually questioned, if we are aware that there are opportunities to do your articles here in the UK if you've completed your CTA in South Africa. And following from that, I guess the question there was, there aren't a lot of a lot of people of color that I was seeing in those trainings. And I guess I just, communicated that concern. So following that, I have been having conversations and I've been having discussions with people that I know who are doing their articles here, and it is in my plan to actually bring somebody to share their experience. But I've been in conversation with them in the meantime, and they've sort of told me how the process works and like all the challenges that they face in trying to ultimately get here to start their articles. And I just thought, let me share some of these things with you. So if you're watching at home and you may be thinking of doing your articles abroad, especially here in the UK, these are some of the things that you may need to think about, that you may need to get over, that you may need to resolve. And I guess ultimately it's a lot of these points that I'm going to mention here are really the barriers that cause a lot of people, especially of color, not be able to afford to do their articles in the UK specifically. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the board courses and the exam costs. So if you're done with your CTA and you enroll for a board course to help you prepare for ITC, that enrollment to a board course comes at a cost, first of all, and then there's an actual exam registration fee that you have to pay to SAICA for your exam, for your ITC exam. So both the APC and the ITC exam follow the same structure. So you have to do a board course for which you'd have to pay for, and there is actual exam registration cost that you'd have to incur. So if you do decide to do your articles abroad, companies abroad, audit firms abroad, normally from the discussions that I've had with people who have gone through the process, they don't pay for these costs. So in comparison to South Africa, where audit firms in South Africa would probably pay for your board costs and they would pay for your exam registration, because they just have a lot of people who are doing the same thing, and so they process one payment for everyone. And it is actually quite the norm that in South Africa these costs will be borne by your employer. Audit firms abroad may not necessarily pay for those costs. From the discussions that I've had with people is that you would have to pay for your own registration for the exam, and you'd have to pay for your own board course. So that already comes with a financial burden on you to be able to cover the exam and to be able to cover the board course fees if you are looking to then move and do your articles abroad. The second thing, there is relocation costs, and although while some of these relocation costs can be reimbursed and you can have the money back, it is a requirement that you incur the cost first and then get reimbursed for that cost. So in any way, you will still need to have the finances, you will still need to have the money up front to pay for the flight, to pay for your temporal accommodation, to pay for your transport to and from the office in the first month of work. You'd need to have money to, I guess, to live for that first month before your salary kicks in at the end of the month. And while obviously if you are in South Africa and doing your articles there, you still have these costs, I think it's a lot more better there. Especially if you have family, then you can live with someone, maybe you can live with a friend for a month and the costs are not as big. But if you're gonna incur flights, if you're gonna come and stay in a country whose currency is much stronger than the rand, then you're gonna need a lot more finances to finance you for that first month before you get your salary. Over and above that, you need to think about visa costs. And in a lot of the cases that I have known about, the firms that you come to work for in the UK will pay for your visa cost upfront so that you don't need to incur. However, there are certain supporting documents that you need to furnish your employer with, which will need to be paid for by yourself. So, i.e., for you to apply for a worker's visa, if you're coming to work in the UK, you need to have a TB test done. The TB test, that certificate you get, forms part of the supporting documents for your visa submission, but you need to pay for that TB test yourself, and then you can claim it back from your employer. So the TB test and the English verification that they do on you, whether you decide to write the English test or whether you decide to use your qualifications to prove that you are fluent in English, you understand and you can speak it, those costs will need to be incurred by you in supporting the ultimate visa that your employer will then pay for. So be mindful that you still need to pay those costs. The third thing, and maybe the fourth thing actually, is your tuition fees. And this is the biggest thing in South Africa for us, especially as Black young professionals, if I can put it that way, that university is not cheap in South Africa. Higher education is quite expensive. And obviously, if you think about it, if you're going to do your articles abroad and not in South Africa, that means you need to have either one, paid for your own fees, and so you owe nobody time to work back the money. So it's either you paid for your fees yourself, you self-funded, or you had a bursary that was just happy to pay for your fees with no training contract attached to that. And I guess, you know, for somebody like me who has gone through the process of signing a training contract when I was in matric, and I didn't know that I was actually signing a training contract. All I knew is that this company was going to pay for my fees, only to find out 3 years later that no, actually I need to work for them. That can be very difficult. So if you've self-funded, or if you have had some sort of scholarship, some sort of learnership that has funded you through your university and has no obligation for you to work for them, then it is highly possible that you could then move over abroad to do your articles here. However, if you are in a bursary that requires you to work for that company after you've done with your studying, then it becomes difficult for you to then move and say, no, actually I don't want to do my articles with you guys who have funded me. I would rather do my articles with a firm abroad. Then you need to either pay those people back the money that they funded your studies, or you need to make some sort of arrangement between the two firms for the one to pay back the other, which in my experience is very difficult. So firms in the UK, especially audit firms, would rather prefer somebody who has no work obligations in South Africa to work for a certain firm after they've completed their articles. So these are some of the hurdles that I have been identifying from the conversations that I've had with trainees that are now doing their articles here. They've had to self-fund. I think the biggest of all these 4 points is, I guess, finances. You know, if you relied on somebody to fund your studies and they say you need to work for us, unfortunately that's what you need to do unless you can get yourself out of that obligation. However, for a lot of us, a lot of people of color, I say people of color a lot because I was also one of those people who just could not afford to study without any help. And I'm super grateful that my audit firm at the time came in and helped me, but I also feel like I didn't know the extent of what I was signing into. And I'm not saying I would have made a different decision. I probably still would have signed because I needed to go to school. I needed an education. And that is some of the realities that we live in South Africa, unfortunately. So if you are thinking maybe of doing your articles abroad, just be mindful of these things. I would say start saving, but also it's a bit difficult because what are you saving if you're still in school? So it's just some of the hurdles that have, I guess, been in the journey of people who are trying to complete their articles and would like to move abroad. If you're already in the process and you feel like I've already signed a contract, they've already paid for my fees, it is not a train smash to do your articles in South Africa. It does not take anything away from you. I did my articles in South Africa. I turned out just fine. You can always move abroad if you want. At the end of those articles, you can come do a 2-year stint, you can come do an 18 months, and then just get a feel for the place. And ultimately, if you do like it, then you can get a permanent contract. But I just thought I should let you guys know, not to sound negative or anything, but I think we need to be realistic with what we can do with the circumstances that we have, with the finances that we have, with the opportunities that we have. If you do feel strongly that, you know what, I need to do my articles abroad, then, take into consideration these points and start preparing yourself financially, start preparing your family, start preparing yourself as well emotionally, because it's quite an emotional move. And just make sure that by the end of your CTA, you have the finances to cover your board course yourself, to cover the exam registrations yourself, and to also live for the first month while you are transitioning from your exam to your role, until you get that first month's salary, and I guess ultimately a reimbursement of all the costs you would have incurred. But I hope you guys found this video useful. Please drop down a comment and let me know if you did find it useful, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really does help the algorithm suggest this video to other people who may find it useful. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.